Hello.
Everyone.
Hello, ladies.
How are you?
I'm good.
I'm good. Better.
Good. Good.
I'm glad. I guess, is Nadia still sick from her caterpillar bite?
Oh God, I started
I know.
reading about them. They sound horrific.
I
And
have
even if they're not around, you could get the little hairs on you and it just sounds horrible.
I was like, oh my, I like how she said it took my powers away. I was like, yes, it does take my powers away. I love it because it's like, it's exactly what it does. And it's bug bites that you're allergic to.
Oh, yeah.
So Hyana, tell me about your summer course.
Yes, finally. I applied to this thing, I think, beginning of the year. And then because of Corona, everything got canceled or postponed. And it's a summer course in research and design, methodology, etc. I'm a bit scared because it's at the university level and it's been a couple of years, let's say 10, 12 years since I was in a classroom. But I'm super excited because, yeah, I learn a lot on a day-to-day job, but I really want to have more academic experience. And I think that's going to be an awesome opportunity to see, how research is discussed in the classroom. So that's
I
it.
love this. And I hope that what we can do is distill what you learn and create like a little learning content handbook page here and have it feed back into our like empowerment of UX and product managers. That'd be like a dream, just to take that content and inject it back in.
That's awesome. I'm a bit scared, but excited and comfortable that it's going to be at home. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
In a way, I'm
Yeah.
happy.
This reminds me,
I think you're going to go do great. Go ahead.
I agree with that. This reminds me, it's been about 12 years for me too. And I got my master's when I was working full time. And I just remember that I lived off cigarettes and Red Bull for like years. I was like, how did I do that? I don't think I would be able to.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. No, it's going to be great. The SPSS is great. We had to hand code everything in my survey course. She wouldn't let us use the SPSS. We had a calculator and we had to learn all the formulas. I'm like, seriously, this is 2008. Why are we doing it this way? So yeah. So I think you'll have fun with it. I think it'll definitely expose you to a lot of things that we don't get a chance to do here right now, but things that we should be doing. So I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. And let me know if I can help at all.
Of course. I'm already thinking, okay, how can Lori help me here?
Yes, don't hesitate to ask. Please don't. Please. I want to help if you want my help. I'm here.
I'll do
And,
for sure.
and as far as availability for that milestone, we can plan for this to be a back-end heavy milestone too, with a good focus on Jake and Nathan rendering things like the deploy freezes, errors, and the stuff that already has designs. So if I can swap out some of the work that we currently have scheduled for 13.3 to be more focused on those lenses, I'm happy to. And also, like, if we want to pull in more release bugs that are P2s and P3s, I think that's a great opportunity to get our MR rate up, reduce review cycle time, and really empower you to go learn and enrich your experience, not being worried about, oh gosh, I got to do these things back here. So don't let release management be an anxiety here. Let's prioritize your education, your UX maintainership, and then release management in milestone work.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jackie. I'm going to receive from them, I think this week, at some point this week, the whole like program. And then I'll share with you because they say in the website that it's like supposed to be a very intensive, but I want to align with you. So thank you for for creating this buffer. That's really awesome.
Yeah, just let me know the 13.3 plan. We just got to get ahead of it and be transparent. You know, we plan ambitiously. So that's one of the benefits here is that we don't have to like worry about people coming back with pitchforks and fire. You know, we'll make it happen.
Awesome. Cool. So let's see. I think I have the next couple of agenda items, and then I actually want to share with you and also get some feedback from everything that was in my head, and now it's on visuals for group releases and also the director dashboard. I mostly worked on group releases, to be honest. So brace yourselves. Let's see if I can tell this story. I was rewatching, Jackie, some of the calls, and some of them go back to January when we were talking about group releases and milestones as planning and a planning mechanism, and release as how do you call that? This compliance, the audit view. And I don't have a lot of visuals right now because I was trying to distill this information, also play around a little bit with the two workflows that I want to validate with you too before I jump into high fidelity prototypes. So nothing special here. I think you can see my screen, right? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so this also helped me to explain this information a little bit to other designers. So making this differentiation between releases on the group level to verify what we delivered, right? Together with the time box, that is the milestone. Interrupt me if I'm wrong, because it was a lot of information.
Yeah, so particularly around time boxes, we're really dependent on what plan chooses to do with their iterations, what they decide to call them. So we need to think about how we can create some agnosticism of milestone and iteration selectors, because what we may see in a side panel is that there's an expansion of the milestone to be an iteration, and we'd want there to be enough flexibility to have releases associated to all separate time boxes, because really releases are a delivery snapshot.
Mm-hmm.
All the planning functionality should be upstream, either in a different system or in our planning features, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the kind of breakdown that I was trying to do in the UI, as in we can have a group release without having a group milestone set, right? Then we talked about not having tags and having upcoming and expired releases, all these concepts in this one view, in this one workflow. But for this prototype, I added milestones, right? Just so that we know how this would look like in the UI and try to capture dependencies with components, flows, whatever. So this is me trying to think on what views we would have here, what where the user would go, so where you click and what you do on the pages. So I can translate this in the prototypes, but quickly, I started with looking to creating a group release from existing project releases, right? And this still follows the milestone flow. So in the group overview, you land on the group overview and then you navigate to releases, potentially a new section in the group view, the project group level. My God, too many names. So in the group releases overview, you want to create a new release at the group level. So you click to create a new one, you land on the form, and then same mode, you add a name to this new group release, enter a title, and next you can want to determine the versions. So this is where I am in the discussion, this threads with Nathan and Sean about this relationship between tags, releases, groups, and how that will look at the group form.
As an MVC, we should only support existing releases.
Mm-hmm.
And that will help us then decide if we're going to end up consolidating tags into releases. But either way, like in order for a group release to be usable as a first edition, we should just be able to bucket existing project releases up to the group level. That visibility, that single thread, that umbrella is what we're trying to create with this feature set.
Okay.
And then maybe after we decide that we're at the group level and we want to select a tag that doesn't have a project release on it at the group level, we can do that. But first MVC, the only thing I'm caring about, because this is what users have told us, is that I want to be able to bucket my existing releases as an application at the group level. Because sometimes groups represent applications or end user experiences, and projects underneath that are different components of that end user experience.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that aligns, I think, with this proposal, because I started like reading of the questions that we have in the thread and the videos, and also like, okay, how would that even look in the UI? Because this adds so much complexity for users to have the ability to select either tags, like I'm thinking component wise, right? Interaction. We don't have that those mechanisms right now, and we'll have to, yeah, spend more time creating components or updating components for that. So, and I also had these questions related to, okay, if I can select a tag, should it be any tag or only release tags? And if it's only release tags, then shouldn't it just be releases? So I'm glad that you mentioned. For now, it's only releases. Yeah. Okay. So the user selects this version, so the release, and then you can see them
I have a
in UI.
pick. I have a
Yeah.
pick. What's a version?
Yes, exactly. I put version because I didn't want to put tag or release specifically.
Oh, I love it though. Should group releases be called versions?
Mm.
Should we consider calling it not a release? Because what are we trying to show with a group release? It's really a declaration of an application in many customer use cases, or they have a microservice and a sub project, a runner service, for example. Like if we think about GitLab, each
Mm-hmm.
project is its own service and it bubbles up to the GitLab.org experience. So how do we should we do a research study on what we should call group releases? I mean, for now, I guess we can call it a group release, and it's not a big deal. But we could eventually rebrand it to a
Yeah.
version.
Yeah, and also when thinking of, I have this in the, I don't know why my prototype closed, but I have in the UI, when you, let me stop sharing so I can find this file. When you create a group release, do you still want us to add assets there? Do you still want to add a release notes? Do you still want to add all the complexity from the project release to the group release? And if not, is this really a release, or is just this, this package version with everything, or a way to link to all this standalone project releases across within your group?
In the future, I could see that this be an aggregation job. So you pick a release tag and it just sucks in all the assets and the release notes from these project releases. And that's what generates the assets as like a release bundle, right? As an MVC, we may provide links to the project assets under the asset links so that they can at least go to the releases overview page under the group and then click into the project release assets and release notes.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we do more validation, we can iterate to create this single group asset. But that's a new archetype, like, are we going to allow uploading to group releases? In my mind, no, because there's not a repository at the group level. So it doesn't make
Exactly.
sense to have source code at the group level because there's no repository. We have a release that's a tag of a repository, and the group is just a way to see visibly across all the projects that represent your end user experience as a release manager.
But since there is no repo, how would it look for compliance? Like you have no tag, right? You don't have a tag, you don't have assets being generated there. What is the like
It's not
the
really a
end result?
compliance need because the release evidence will be at the project still. There isn't going to be release evidence generated at the group level because there's no code at the group level yet. Maybe we will support group repositories. I don't know when and if that's the truth or not. But today, like, there will be no release evidence at the group level because there isn't a thing to do that to.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's aligned with everything I did. I'm so happy. So let me
Wait,
quickly.
it's like what our product vision is. Holy cow. I feel like we should share this. Like, you as a designer are fully empowered to make decisions for the release management mocks because you know the vision. I wonder what we did right there.
It's like I've been listening.
I know.
Awesome. So let's say that you added and you selected your group milestone at this point. If you can do that, you review your selection, you create your new group release, and you see that in your group releases overview page. So I'm going to jump to the prototypes because I was playing around with some of these options. And which one is this? Yeah. So this is the create new release. I was just like seeing which components, like which form items would stay here. So you mentioned that you would have assets.
Well,
right?
what if that assets is actually a drop-down menu where you get to select the project assets that you want to populate onto the group? And maybe that's a further iteration. Like it doesn't consider the option of you to add an asset link, but it's rather select from existing project release assets.
Mm. And then what would be the value of having that at a glance on the group release?
So say that they want to select all the release runbooks for each of the sub-projects so that you can see the different processes and statuses of the release sub-project at a glance. So it's less about the source code and more about the surrounding activities of the release that are linked to a specific project.
Okay. So you would be able to, like, from your previous selection, let's say that create from or whatever name that we call this.
It's
so
a dependent pick list. Yeah.
It's yeah, it loads from this selection.
Yes.
Okay. And then here you give a title, you select which releases, or here's release or tags. I was a bit like, so let's say which project releases you want to select, and then you have
And maybe there should be select one or more releases, because I could see a world where there's only one project release that's been created, and then they want the ability to then add new releases in the future.
Yeah. And then you select the group milestone. So then here, only see the group milestones, add release notes, or would the release notes be like an auto change log or something that
I would love it to be an auto change log from the project releases, but there's an option maybe that we add in a second iteration that is a toggle, even though Marin hates toggles. Maybe it's a different configuration option that says auto populate from project release notes or create new group release notes, because I could see a world where they use this release notes to depict the experience they're trying to create for their end user, rather than a description that I've enabled Mac OS on my runner, right?
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And then assets.
And maybe we call this, like, if we decide that this is actually a version in the new world, that we call this version notes,
or just
version title.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we can make a differentiation here that this isn't about, a release because there's no code. This is about declaring a version at the group level, because it's a different sort of asset or artifact rather in GitLab. It's not technically a release tag or code, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then at this point, I don't think it's even worth showing the tags, right? If you're selecting the releases.
Yeah.
So I even removed here from the UI. Okay. And then this will be the create form. And then I was playing around here with how this would look like. This is super low fidelity, so don't mind anything in colors.
So would we want to consider project milestones in this view? Because the project releases may have their own project milestones in addition to the group milestones. So I could see a world where we want to show all of the release progress views here.
So really like, like project release one, and then you have these.
Yes.
Blah, 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 blah.
And that way they can reconcile at a glance. I am 10% done with my project milestone, and my group milestone actually has a bunch of other projects in it, and it's 30% complete. But my work in the sub projects may not be always related to the group milestone. So we'll need to, this is a good picture to paint, right? It can show that I need to do additional work on my project milestone before the group milestone gets done.
Yeah, that clarifies my question, especially if you don't really set a milestone for your group release, you can still see this overview, right? Because it will come from all the project releases. You just don't have time box. Yeah. Okay. Coolio.
And in the future, for people who don't use milestones, we will want the ability to support the association of a issue to a release tag and of an MR to a release tag.
Yeah.
And maybe tag is not necessary. Maybe we should just call it a release, because in the future we could get rid of tags from being, you know, a thing inside of releases.
Yeah, that's one thing I didn't really want to say here, like use the name tag for anything in the UI, because you're not managing tags at the group level. So I think if we go in that direction, people are gonna expect to be able to do everything that they do in the create or edit release form in the project level here.
What if we call this delivery plan? Because releases, when you aggregate them at this level, we can play with this some more, but like a release in Git world is always code related. So first, I have this like friction in my mind right now of setting the right expectation of what we're trying to accomplish with group releases. I don't know if it's actually a release because there's no code in it. It really is like a representation of your delivery. So how do we, I want to reconcile that. We can call it version, we can call it delivery plan. Our competitors call them deployment plans. So a way to like bridge the expectations of the analysts to have deployment plans and orchestration capabilities. We'll want to think about that. We have on Monday, Hayana, a conversation with Ori about release stage 3-year mocks. I could see this view that you're showing me right now expanding to include target environments, and having this be like the one-stop place where people can view their deployment progress, right? And that's a 3-year target, but like this is something to show how extensible we want this view to be, because it's not about code in this case. It can't be, because there's no repository at the group.
It's really this at-a-glance view of everything that's in the bucket, right? For all these versions, and giving you the ability, I think similar to what we want to do with the environments dashboard and the CI/CD dashboard, give users the ability to go anywhere they want from this view. Yeah, okay. To
be a jump off, to cross-link, to look at my test results potentially, to look at everything in this view. Maybe templates that are being used in the pipelines. Like I could see this being a really great opportunity to suck people into different CI/CD functions across GitLab.
Okay, awesome. You actually answered most of my questions. I had all these green things here, questions. If you need to assign a date, or if you can create milestones from here, but everything is clear. Going back to this view, I added here assets just because in my head, we would get all these releases at the project level and then create one zip file or whatever where you can download everything instead of users having to go here and then.
We will need to be thoughtful about the zipping of assets, because today we zip a single file.
Yeah.
So it'll be like a zip of a zip of a zip of a zip, and it'll be endless zips. So we need to like figure out a way to like extract all and then zip it. You know, because our users are already like, why am I zipping a single file here, bro?
Yeah. So it could be something that, okay, here's your overview, and then download everything.
So when I think about actionability on this view, Hayana, I think I'd rather people perform their actions on the project release page. So I'd rather launch them to the project view and then do their asset work there. And have the group view be like a launching place rather than like the place where you fix assets to your project releases. But that's an assumption based on there isn't such of an archetype today in the Git land of a release bundle.
Yeah.
So how do we drive actionability that's performant and meets people's expectations, I think is the question I'm trying to ask here.
Yeah. Because if you want, like what you said before, if you want to just cherry pick some of these assets to show at the group release level, I think it will be worth showing here, you know, let's say runbooks, whatever. Then you just have a selection here. But I wonder, like if you need to, not just what's the word for that? Have the overview, the at a glance view, but you need to act on this page, going to each individual project release to download these assets. I'm just curious also to see how people, how much friction that would cause. But
I think this is a great validation
yeah,
to talk with both Marin and Steve about, because that will be our developer persona. That would be the first teams to consume this kind of a feature. Because I really don't know from what I understand our customers' use case to be and what they would be actually doing with assets today.
yeah. My assumption is that they will want to see it here, but let's see.
Yeah, and maybe it's actually a link to all project assets, and it opens up like a new modal or a new page window or whatever our framework is here, and it just lists all of the project assets, rather than it being like an expand and collapse kind of experience.
Yeah.
I'm worried about this page becoming another endless scroll.
Yes, that's
and
why.
not being actionable.
Yeah, what I just put like these card-like thingies here, because I think if we're going to expand this and have the ability to, for example, see assets or see merge requests or whatever, we should have a interview the same way we have with the release and the release detail page.
And it would be really cool if we can get Dennis again as like the inner sourcing embedded software use case, because he's been waiting for assets and uploading assets to releases for a long time. So it would be a cool thing to like actually gauge him on. And for what it's worth, I'm loving the little tab action you have up here on upcoming and expired. That is very slick, my friend.
Yeah, because since we don't really have the ability to filter, sort, or anything in the releases, the project release overview, I was thinking maybe we should just tab this for now to give people some flexibility. And then we talked, I think, last week about not showing releases that don't still have, how to call that, upcoming releases, right? On this overview, and have a way to really differentiate those. But I'm still unsure about how that will work. Tabs, I think tabs is the easiest way, also for implementation.
I do have an issue that I just had Jake wait about filtering releases at the project page for our dog fooding effort, and it was more like, hey, what is your impression here? So if that
dating milestones, I think this one.
I'm just slacking or just chatting it here now. Like that issue, I think
Yes. Yeah,
is one way to. But I think the tabbing is our quick win and quick opportunity to also segment the experience in a meaningful way. Yeah.
Because the problem with the pagination is that they cannot guarantee that if you select if you're in a specific page or if you filter, sort, whatever, you go back to that view.
Yeah, it's not a sticky experience.
No,
which
so
is
maybe
awful. Yeah.
So if we can solve that through pagination for now, that could be a low-hanging fruit for us. Well, awesome. And let me see what I have here. Oh yeah, and here I was just playing around with how it would look like to select milestones if they belong to a group or a project in the release detail view. So you're at the project, releases, edit release, and let's say that you want to promote, right? We also touched on this point where you have an item and you want to make that project release part of the group release. And then I was like, okay, how do you do that if you don't necessarily associate it through the milestone? Because I think our first assumption was really milestones, release, group release, etc.
I think that group releases are fundamentally a different object. So there won't really be a promotion path when we look at it, mainly because the group release is a bucket not tied to code. So a project release will always be tied to code. But we can talk about this more with the technical side of it. Maybe it becomes, maybe our promotion is actually a creation of a group release and it adds the project tag automatically. Or the project release tag. So like the action is promote like backslash promote to group release, but then the back end action is creating a new group release and associating the project release to it.
Yeah,
When it inherits the same name as the project release at the group level,
yeah,
you know.
because everything stays at the project level, right? The tags and the whole spring, they all stay there. So it's really just either associating to an existing group release, right? So that you have another item in the list, or like what you're saying, creating a new one so that you can now add other project releases. Then when I was looking at the association through milestones, I was like, this doesn't make sense because what if there is already um, a project milestone, and then how is that going to work with the, you know, selecting from this view? So I tried also with, oops,
I like
with
this a
that
lot.
navigation here.
Yeah.
So then you can see how many project releases, how many group releases you have, etc. But also, I don't think I have here, no, I didn't work on this yet. Really have like a check or something in the form that says add to group release. And then you can see a selection of, instead of group milestones, let's say.
What if we call it subscribe group release to milestones? Because what I'm thinking about is the group release is watching these project issues and project merge requests, because issues don't exist at that group level. So it's subscribing. It's not actually linked. And this, we can dive into this, what I mean by that different in at a different time, because I know that we're at time right now. But when I think about this object, it's not a release, you know, it just doesn't have the same properties. It's a completely different object that means something different to a release manager, right? Like this is visibility as an umbrella. Yeah. So it's to look into and to be an aggregator for the project deployments, right?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do some investigation on how we want to name this thing, because version project release.
Calling it a group release is feeling wrong now, because we're setting an expectation that like we have a repository at the group level and we're making a code deployment and it has a pipeline when it won't, you know.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna publish these prototypes, and then it's in the same link from before, but I'm gonna add to Slack so you can have a look.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was fantastic, Hayana. I think there isn't anything at risk from what I know. We are waiting for engineering feedback on one issue though. So I think we're in good shape. Yeah.
One thing I need to do is to create a discussion guide, and then I need to sync with you, Lori, just to get feedback there and see how can, figure out the scenarios here to do some testing. That's it.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Lori, for your time. Thank you, Hayana.
Of course. Thanks, ladies.
Bye.